In an age that champions constant connection, collaboration, and the endless stream of shared information, the idea of learning alone might seem almost archaic, perhaps even isolating. We are urged to network, to brainstorm in groups, to seek knowledge from a multitude of external sources. Yet, what if a profound, perhaps even essential dimension of learning unfolds precisely when we retreat from the noise, when we dare to enter the quiet sanctuary of our own minds? The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, a man unafraid of solitude, championed this very path. He saw in solitary study not a lack, but a unique opportunity. A space for deep engagement, for authentic understanding, and for the kind of thinking that truly shapes the intellect and the soul. Today, we explore the art of learning alone through Schopenhauer's discerning eyes, but also tempered with a wider wisdom. We'll journey into why solitude can be such fertile ground for thought, how to cultivate a mind that truly thinks for itself, and how this ancient practice can become a secret weapon for clarity, depth, and genuine self-discovery in our bustling modern world. Arthur Schopenhauer was uncompromising in his advocacy for solitude as the breeding ground for genuine intellectual labor. For him, the hustle and bustle of society, the endless chatter, the relentless demands of social intercourse were not aids to thought, but significant impediments. He saw the external world, with its myriad distractions and superficial engagements, as constantly pulling the mind outwards, away from the deep internal work required for true understanding. In solitude, Schopenhauer found a necessary sanctuary. Here, one could finally escape the cacophony of prevailing public opinion, the subtle and not so subtle pressures to conform, and the often shallow judgments of the crowd. It was a space where the mind could be free to follow its own path, unswayed by the chorus of external voices. Furthermore, solitude provided the perfect conditions for what he considered one of the most fruitful forms of learning, a direct and profound communion with the great minds of the past through their writings. In the quiet of one's own study, away from interruption, one could truly engage with the thoughts of Plato, Kant, or the sages of the Upanishads, allowing their wisdom to penetrate deeply. Perhaps most importantly, Schopenhauer believed that solitude grants us precious access to our own innermost thoughts and insights. It is only when the noise of the world recedes that we can truly hear the whispers of our own intellect, wrestle with our own ideas, and forge original connections. While he held that few people truly engage in this independent thinking, the principle remains. Solitude is the fertile soil where the seeds of authentic understanding, born from within, can germinate and flourish, shielded from the trampling feet of the everyday. Schopenhauer drew a sharp distinction between two kinds of intellectual activity: passively absorbing the thoughts of others through extensive reading, and actively thinking for oneself. He cautioned that too much reading, without proportionate time for reflection, can actually deaden the mind, making it a mere receptacle for external ideas rather than a living spring of its own. It is in solitude, he argued, that the mind truly awakens and begins this vital work of independent thought. When we learn alone, free from the immediate influence of a teacher's interpretation or a group's consensus, we are compelled to engage with the material on a far deeper level. It's no longer about simply receiving information. It's about actively processing, questioning, and making it our own. This is the essence of cultivating an inner dialogue. In the quiet of solitude, we converse not only with the author of a text, but more importantly, with ourselves. We turn ideas over, examine them from different angles, test their validity against our own experiences and understanding. We allow ourselves to be puzzled, to struggle, to follow tangents that might seem unproductive in a more structured external learning environment, but which often lead to the most profound insights. This internal wrestling with concepts, this dedicated Socratic questioning of oneself, is what transforms borrowed knowledge into genuine understanding. It is how thoughts cease to be foreign objects and become integrated parts of our own intellectual framework. This mirrors in many ways the Stoic practice of rigorous self-examination, where one patiently dissects one's own judgments and impressions to arrive at clarity and truth. Learning alone, in this Schopenhauerian and Stoic sense, is therefore not an empty silence, but a vibrant, dynamic engagement. The forging of a mind that doesn't just know, but understands, and is capable of producing thoughts that are authentically its own. While Schopenhauer passionately championed the virtues of learning alone, it would be naive to imagine this path is without its own shadows and pitfalls. Like any powerful tool, solitude for study must be wielded with wisdom and awareness. One potential danger lies in the echo chamber of the self. Without the challenge of differing perspectives, our own biases can go unchecked. Our interpretations can become narrow, and we might stray into intellectual cul-de-sacs, convinced of truths that a wider lens would reveal as incomplete. There's also the risk of excessive isolation. While solitude is fertile ground for thought, prolonged or unbalanced detachment can lead to loneliness, a disconnect from the shared human experience that even Schopenhauer acknowledged could be painful, or worse, breed a certain misanthropic disdain for the commonplace mind. Furthermore, the solitary learner may miss the sharpening stone of critical feedback from peers or mentors, who can spot flaws in reasoning or offer alternative viewpoints. Yet, these dangers are not insurmountable. By cultivating intellectual humility, by consciously seeking out diverse written voices even within our solitude, and by balancing periods of deep solitary work with thoughtful engagement when appropriate, we can mitigate these risks. And the delights of learning alone, when navigated well, are profound. While Schopenhauer passionately championed the virtues of learning alone, it would be naive to imagine this path is without its own shadows and pitfalls. Like any powerful tool, solitude for study must be wielded with wisdom and awareness. One potential danger lies in the echo chamber of the self. Without the challenge of differing perspectives, our own biases can go unchecked, our interpretations can become narrow, and we might stray into intellectual cul-de-sacs, convinced of truths that a wider lens would reveal as incomplete. There's also the risk of excessive isolation. While solitude is fertile ground for thought, prolonged or unbalanced detachment can lead to loneliness, a disconnect from the shared human experience that even Schopenhauer acknowledged could be painful, or worse, breed a certain misanthropic disdain for the commonplace mind. Furthermore, the solitary learner may miss the sharpening stone of critical feedback from peers or mentors, who can spot flaws in reasoning or offer alternative viewpoints. Yet, these dangers are not insurmountable. By cultivating intellectual humility, by consciously seeking out diverse written voices even within our solitude, and by balancing periods of deep solitary work with thoughtful engagement when appropriate, we can mitigate these risks. And the delights of learning alone, when navigated well, are profound.
There's an unparalleled joy in the sudden, unmediated flash of insight, the deep click of understanding that comes from wrestling with a concept entirely on your own terms. There's the profound peace and focus that arises in the quiet sanctuary of your mind, allowing for connections and depths of thought rarely achieved amidst distraction. And there is the immense satisfaction of forging knowledge that feels authentically yours, not borrowed or passively received. The art of learning alone, then, lies in this careful navigation, understanding the potential perils while remaining open to the extraordinary quiet joys of genuine independent discovery. Schopenhauer powerfully illuminates the unique conditions solitude offers for deep thought, for escaping the noise and truly communing with ideas. Yet, to fully harness the art of learning alone without succumbing to its potential pitfalls like misanthropy or sterile isolation, we find an invaluable ally in Stoic philosophy. While Schopenhauer prized solitude often as an escape from the world's folly, Stoicism offers a path to engage with the world more wisely, using periods of solitary learning to cultivate the very strengths needed for that engagement. The Stoics champion self-sufficiency, or autarkia, not a brittle independence born of disdain, but a robust inner resourcefulness. The wise Stoic learner finds their primary intellectual and emotional sustenance within, in the cultivation of their own reason and virtue. Their inner citadel is not only a fortress against external disturbances, but also a quiet, well-ordered library and laboratory for the mind. Here, they engage in rigorous rational inquiry and self-examination, testing ideas, clarifying judgments, and deepening their understanding, much like Schopenhauer's solitary thinker. However, the purpose of this solitary learning is subtly yet profoundly different. For the Stoic, knowledge and understanding are not ends in themselves, nor merely a refuge from suffering, but are pursued in service of living a virtuous life and fulfilling one's duty to the human community. The wisdom gained in solitude is meant to be brought back into the world, informing our actions, making us better citizens, friends, and family members. Stoicism reminds us that while we may learn alone, we live as part of an interconnected whole, sympatheia. Thus, the Stoic approach tempers solitary learning with an underlying sense of social responsibility, preventing it from souring into a complete withdrawal. The wise learner, in this integrated view, uses solitude to sharpen their mind and purify their character, all so they can contribute more effectively and live more serenely within the human sphere. Embracing the art of learning alone in our hyper-connected, relentlessly paced modern world may seem like a daunting ideal. Where do we find the silence, the uninterrupted time that Schopenhauer deemed so essential? The key lies not in grand gestures of withdrawal, but in the conscious cultivation of intentional solitude and the wise integration of this practice into the rhythm of our lives. It begins with recognizing that even small pockets of focused solitary time can be immensely fruitful. Perhaps it's waking a little earlier, before the household stirs, to read and reflect. Maybe it's dedicating a lunch hour once a week to quiet contemplation in a park, or mindfully disconnecting from digital devices for a set period each evening. This creation of sacred space, both temporal and mental, is the first practical step. Then consider what you bring into your solitude. Schopenhauer would champion the great books, the timeless thinkers. The Stoics would add the crucial practice of turning inwards, examining your own thoughts, judgments, and actions, journaling your reflections on virtue and daily experiences. The how is equally important. Solitary learning isn't passive absorption, it's an active, dynamic engagement. It involves questioning the material, connecting it to your own life, patiently wrestling with challenging ideas, and allowing your mind the freedom to wander and forge its own unique pathways. It requires a certain intellectual patience and self-compassion, understanding that insight doesn't always arrive on demand. Crucially, this art is about balance. As the Stoics remind us, the wisdom gained in our inner citadel in these moments of solitary learning is ultimately meant to enrich our engagement with the world, to make us more thoughtful, resilient, and virtuous in our connections. It's about weaving these threads of quiet study and deep thought into the larger tapestry of a well-lived, well-balanced life, transforming learning alone from a rare luxury into a nourishing, sustainable practice. We have explored the art of learning alone, guided by Schopenhauer's profound appreciation for solitude's intellectual gifts and tempered by the Stoics' wisdom of balance, purpose, and inner sufficiency. We've seen that carving out space for solitary reflection and deep engagement with ideas is not an indulgence, but a vital practice for cultivating a mind that truly thinks for itself, a soul that understands its own depths. In the quiet of this personal sanctuary, far from the relentless demands of the external world, we find the freedom to dialogue authentically with ourselves, with the great minds of the past, and with the timeless truths that resonate within. This art, while perhaps countercultural in our noisy age, offers rewards that are immeasurable: clarity of thought, genuine understanding, a strengthened inner citadel, and a profound sense of connection to our own intellectual and spiritual core.
It is a path to self-reliance, not as an escape from the world, but as a means to return to it with greater wisdom, resilience, and a more authentic voice. The journey of learning alone is an invitation to discover the vast, uncharted territories within your own mind. It is a testament to the enduring power of quiet contemplation and a reminder that some of the most valuable treasures are found not in the clamor of the crowd, but in the serene, focused stillness of solitary study. May you find richness and profound discovery in your own quiet pursuit of knowing. If the art of learning alone resonates with your quest for deeper understanding and inner clarity, then let this be an invitation to carve out your own sacred space for thought. What wisdom will you seek in your quiet moments? What insights await in your own inner dialogue? Share your reflections on solitary learning in the comments below. Your journey inspires others. If you believe in the power of quiet contemplation in a noisy world, consider sharing this video. And to continue exploring the paths to wisdom and self-mastery with us, subscribe. Join our community dedicated to the profound art of knowing oneself.